I would say the large majority of big projects start the wrong way. Because at the very beginning, what you should be doing is asking the question, why are we doing this? What is the good thing, the outcome that we desire, which is causing us to undertake this big project? You might think that that's common sense, right? Anybody does that. That's not true. If you look at the genesis of most big projects, they just sort of, people stumble backwards into them. Somebody will come along and say, we should build a bridge to the island. And somebody else will say, fantastic, let's build a bridge to the island. Somebody else says, well, we should build a bridge, but not to that spot. We should build it to that spot. And somebody else says, a bridge is too expensive, right? And that's where the conversation's going. What have you just missed? Why? Why do you want to build a bridge, right? That's the initial first step. And to show you how incredibly powerful that question is and how absolutely essential it is, you can see it in the story of one of the world's most successful mega projects in modern history. In the mid-1990s, some Spanish officials came to the Canadian-American architect Frank Gehry, who is now a global superstar. At the time, he wasn't a global superstar. The project that I'm about to describe is the project that turned him into a superstar. And they came to Frank Gehry and they said, we have a project we would like you to undertake, and will you take this commission? And the project is very straightforward. There's a city in northern Spain called Bilbao, and in the center of the city, there's an old building. We want to renovate that old building so that it's a suitable home for a Guggenheim art museum. Okay? 99 out of 100 architects, 999 out of 1,000 people would simply at that point say yes or no. I'll take the commission or I won't take the commission. Frank Gehry starts every project the same way, however. He always starts by asking that question, why? And he has a serious conversation. When I say, why are you doing this project? You don't ask glibly. You want to have a real conversation to really get at your motives. And so Gehry asked him, well, why? Why do you want to do this? And the answer was, well, they started to talk about the city of Bilbao. They started to talk about its history. It was an old industrial city. It's basically Spain's Detroit. It was once a place of heavy industry, but the heavy industry is gone. The area is economically depressed. And what they're hoping is Spain has a huge tourism industry, but the tourists all go to the south of Spain and Madrid. They don't go to the north. And if they have a Guggenheim art museum in the north, then the tourists will come to the Guggenheim Art Museum. Frank Gehry says, now I get it. This is about economic development. You want to revitalize the city. Okay. Now let me think about the project that you're proposing. And Gehry thought about it, and he realized that as they had designed the project, it could not possibly work for a very, very simple reason. For the tourists to want to go to see the Guggenheim Art Museum in Bilbao, they had to know that there was a Guggenheim Art Museum in Bilbao. How could you get them that knowledge? The only way is if you get global media attention, right? And then they'll become aware of the art museum. How do you get global media attention for a building renovation? Has that ever happened before, ever? And Gehry said, I don't think the project as you have conceived it can work. And so he said, instead, what could work is he went to Bilbao, and down by the river, at a bend in the river, there was an old derelict factory. He said, knock that down, and I will design a piece of spectacular architecture that's unlike anything you've ever seen before. That could get you your global media attention. That could get you your tourist awareness, and then the tourists show up. And guess what? That project ended up on time, under budget, and massively over benefits. It basically completely revitalized the economy of an entire city. And it only happened because it started with Frank Gehry saying, why?